So all of our beer making stuff besides the bottle that I just took out from inside are in this cabinet that our brother made. Pretty cool, right? So that's what I'm getting into now. How to brew on the road, baby. See if I can do all these. Say it again.
So you need 4 basic ingredients: water, malt,
Which
hops,
is?
and yeast.
Okay, so the malts are?
These are both malts. These are a grain form of malt. So we do what's called a partial mash. Some people do all grains or all extract. We're doing a combination of. So
Okay,
these grains right here let us add some funky flavors. This gives us a lot of sugar
So
to
water,
convert to alcohol.
malts,
And then we've got hops, which are going to do a couple different things. One, these are going to balance out the sweetness of the malt. And then they're also going to give us a nice aroma and flavor on the end. And yeast. This is just a dry yeast, which is a real simple thing to do. That's where the magic happens. The yeast eats up all the sugars that these malts make. They have starches in them that are converted to sugar, and then the yeast eats that sugar and makes alcohol.
and you can add different flavors to your
Right, and in this beer, we're making kind of a blondish, amberish beer, and it's going to have a little bit of honey tangerine in it, or satsumas. So we're going to start by, we do what's called a partial mash, which is extract brewing plus. So we get to do some grains that give us some special flavors to our beer instead of just a straight up extract. And you know, if you've looked into homebrewing, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about there. It's all grain versus extract, and we're kind of in the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple gallons of water here. The total amount right now isn't real critical. Right now what we're doing is we're going to heat up some water to about 150 degrees, 153 degrees, right in that area, and we're going to steep some grains in there and basically make like a tea. And that's going to be, what that's going to do is give us some flavors, malt flavors for our beer, and it's also going to give us some sugars to turn into alcohol so we can have beer. Right now, the first thing we did was just heat up a couple gallons of water.
Okay.
Because what we're going to do is steep these grains in that water.
So the second step in is, go for it.
The second step is just to take these grains and you put them in a little, you can get this at our homebrew supply store, it's a grain bag. You're just going to pour your grains in the bag, and then you're going to steep them in this water for about half an hour.
Okay.
Just to get the starches out of the grains and to get the flavors you want.
And we have a handy assistant.
Perfect. So then you just have a little grain bag here, and I'm just going to tie it off a little bit so it, you know, so in case it falls in or something, it doesn't spill grain all over the place. Because we don't want all the little bits and pieces in there.
It tastes like grape nuts.
And then you just put that in the water, kind of steep it.
It was
like
the
a
right
tea.
temperature?
Yeah, I already checked the temperature is 150. Right where we want to be for this, just to steep our grains. And then you just kind of let it steep for about half an hour. So this is that fun waiting game part of the brewing process. So
Wait
for it.
Wait
for it. We're done steeping our grains. We steeped them for about 30 minutes. And then you want to just kind of let it all drain out in here, because there's still a lot of starches and sugars that we can pull out of these grains in the liquid that's in there. So you don't want to squeeze it and break it up more or anything. You just kind of want to just let it drain out of there, and you can move it around a little bit so you get all the liquid you can out of there. But anyway, so we're draining this, and then once we're done draining it, I've already turned off the flame to this, because what we're going to do is add this malt extract, which is kind of a syrupy liquid, kind of like a molasses almost consistency, and we're going to pour that in there. But I don't want to pour it in when the flame is on, because I have learned from past experience that when you do that, it's almost impossible to keep some of that from scorching on the bottom. So I usually like to do it before I start my boil. I will turn off the flame, pour this in, and stir it in and get it mixed in, because it's still warm enough that it'll mix into the liquid really, really well. And then we'll bring the flame back on and we'll start a boil.
So since we started brewing, we've since put out our awning because it's raining. We're supposed to be in the south, and it's supposed to be warm, and it's like 45 degrees.
But this is going to be really nice when we have to cool our beer. So this is what we have in there. You can see
it looks like
the way it moves. It's like a molasses
caramel.
or syrup, like a caramel, really soft, liquidy. And we're just going to dump it in here. And we're going to start stirring in a second. But,
How do you know how much to put in?
because I have come up with a recipe, and this is how much, this can is actually how much I wanted.
So you've done the
liquid malt
research.
extract. I've done the research, and we came up with a recipe. And you can find a lot of recipes online. Most of them are going to be for a 5 or a 10-gallon batch. We're making a 3-gallon batch because we wanted to keep things a little smaller. And so you can generally just kind of cut your ingredients back, and usually your homebrew supply people or somebody online will be able to give you some advice as far as scaling back a recipe if you need to, if you want to do smaller batches. Now we've got our handy dandy gigantic spoon, which I highly recommend. Broadway Brew Supply in Denver, Colorado. You can go get one there.
Or probably online.
If you're anywhere else in the world, I can't help you there, but you can probably find one online for a few bucks. If you're doing 5 gallons or above, you're really going to want this really long spoon. It's awesome. But so I'm still just getting as much of the extract out of the can as I can, because this is basically pure sugar and flavor, and you want all the sugar you can get so you can make more alcohol, more beer.
Wait, I want to taste it.
Well, you gotta give me a second here.
Okay. You should taste, just like cooking. I don't know, I taste everything.
Taste everything.
You should taste.
That's liquid gold right there. Next step, stir. So we poured the extract in, and the flame's not on, but the wort, which is what this is liquid is now called. W-O-R-T, wort. All I'm doing is making sure that the extract liquefies in here and becomes part of, just becomes totally liquid instead of kind of syrupy. We want it to be liquid so that when it boils, it doesn't burn. So right now all we've done is we've turned the flame back on our pot, and we're just cranking it up, and we're going to try to get a good boil going. You just want to get a good decent boil, not so much that it boils over, but just a good steady roiling boil. So now we're getting ready to get our hops, our hop additions. And what we're going to do is we're going to add about a third of this bag of, we have 1 ounce of Azacca hops here, and we're going to add about a third of that at the beginning of the boil, which is just about ready to get going. And that is going to, what that's going to do, it's going to boil for 60 minutes, and by boiling it, the hops for that long, and we're going to get bittering units out of it. You'll see, like in a brewery or something, see IBUs and stuff like that are on a bottle. And that's what we're getting, is those bittering units, so that it balances out the sweetness of the malts that we just steeped in that, and the extract that we added in there. And then we're going to do a second bag with about another 2/3 of this is going to go in a second bag that we'll add right towards the end, with probably about 5 to 10 minutes left in the boil. We'll add that one in there.
How long is the boil?
And the boil is 60 minutes. So the first bag is going to go for that full 60 minutes, but it's just a little amount of hops because we don't want a lot of bitters in this. We want a pretty easy drinking malty beer on this one. And the other hops, the other 2/3 of this are going to go in right at the end, just because that's going to leave the oils intact, and it's going to give you more aroma and flavor and smell. That's just going to like really give you a nice citrusy flavor from this hop. It gives you a lot of citrus, different kinds of citrus flavors, peach, apricot, all that kind of stuff.
And if only you could smell them when they open.
I can. They smell pretty damn good. So this hop should really accentuate the fruit that we're going for in this beer.
Wait, show your breath. Wait, you can't see.
It's not stinky breath.
Turn that way. Wait, honey. It's
It's
cold. And then you just tie that up and put it right in the boil, right?
Yep, that's going to
And
go right in
then
the
you'll
boil.
set the
But
timer from there.
first, I want to make sure I divide it evenly.
Correct? You set the timer after that?
Yes. So just as we put it in, we're going to get that timer going, and I have a 60-minute timer. And then with about 5 to 10 minutes left on the timer, we'll add our second bag of hops, which will be more for smell and flavor. We're kind of experimenting with this. When we add our last bit of hops in the boil, which is with about 5 minutes left in the boil, which is coming up very soon, I also wanted to add some orange zest to it at the same time. So we're going to use the zest of probably about 2 of these, which is probably around an ounce or so of orange zest, give or take. And we're going to add that then. And then I think also when we ferment the beer, just like maybe for the last day or two before we end up bottling it, I think we're going to add a little bit more orange zest at that point too, just to really give it a good orange kick. So here we go. We're going to do a little bit of, we're just taking a regular grater here, and I don't think it really matters if it's fine or thick.
Like you said, we're experimenting. So.
We're just kind of playing with this a little bit, and that's the fun thing about brewing beer, is you can really play around with it. You can do whatever you want. It's your chemistry experiment. You can do whatever you want, see what you come up with, and then if you don't like it, you just do it a little different next time until you get it how you want it. But that's all we're doing, is we're getting the orangey part of the orange just into little shavings. And we're going to take that and we're going to put it in a little musette bag, just like we do the hops, so that we don't end up with a lot of little particulates all over the place. We're just going to put it in a little bag, and we're going to drop it in the boil for about the last 5 minutes or so it doesn't cook it too much. It just kind of gets the flavor out of it.
Oh, and even sitting out here outside, you can smell that zest. It smells so good.
You can smell it through the video, right?
Sure.
You can smell this.
Sweet smell.
Smell.
Just like you can smell this too. 1, 2, go.
Alright, so we're down to like the 5-minute mark, and so I'm going to drop in our last bag of hops. They're Azaka hops, which are really nice fruity ones. And we've got a little orange zest in here, the Satsuma orange zest, from 2 oranges. So there, I think I'm guesstimating, but I think I have about an ounce or so of orange zest in there. And so...
Right?
Ah, it smells so good.
That looks terrible.
It smells so good. It looks terrible because I've got 2 little baggies like that. Get your mind out. Get your mind out of the beer gutter. Anyway, so we're gonna just got them in little bags so we don't get particulates all over. We're just gonna drop them in the boil, and we're gonna let them boil in there for about 5 minutes, just so it has a little bit of time to pull some of the flavors out of there. It's pulling oils out of the hops, which are, with just 5 minutes left to go, they shouldn't really break down too much. So it's going to leave us a lot of flavor and aroma in there, and that's hopefully what we're getting with the orange zest as well, that we're just long enough that it doesn't really cook it. It just kind of pulls some of that flavor out and gives it that good. So now that we're done boiling, anything that goes in that liquid, you want to be sanitized. So
the burner's shut off now.
The burner's shut off.
The boil's done.
We're trying to start cooling down now, so I dipped this in my sanitization solution, which we'll cover more in some other videos. But this is just so I don't contaminate anything, and I want to get the little bags of hops and orange zest out, which, ooh, that looks good. That's a little bag of hops that expanded while it was in there. Smells good. Smells good. Can't taste it now because we're sanitizing. Alright. So, and this, to some brewers, is going to be a no-no to add water to your water. They would probably say boil this first, maybe. We're going to take a chance. That it's sealed water, distilled water, and we're going to use it to top off our solution before we start fermentation. Because we want to do 3 gallons here, and we did our boil at about 2.5 gallons, and it's down to about 2 gallons. So we're just going to top it off and then cool it down and then start fermenting. And if you're another snide home brewer and don't agree with me on this, feel free to leave a comment. It's okay. My feelings won't be hurt.
Where are you going with the pot?
I'm taking the pot. It's been off the flame for a little bit. We got our full 3 gallons here. Taking it back into the RV, and as you can see in our tub, we got a little ice bath that April put grass in, which is okay because it's staying on the outside.
Yeah.
Just don't let any of that get in your kettle.
No.
So that's why I have a lid on the pot too.
Yeah.
It could cool off a little faster without a lid, but this is also to protect it a little bit so things don't get in it, no bacteria and stuff. So we're just gonna set it in some ice. We're gonna add some more ice around the pot just so we can bring it down to around 65 degrees. That's what we're shooting for, 65 as quickly as we can. And I think being a smaller batch, it should cool off pretty quick.
And this is what you can use your RV tub for, since nobody really uses their RV tub for
Tubbing.
Cooling down process still. Any stirring. What's the temperature at right now?
Before I started stirring, it was at about 92 degrees.
And it was supposed to, and we're trying to get to 65?
We're trying to get to about 65. That would be ideal. So I'm just stirring it because, you know, obviously it's going to cool down around the outside edges first because of the ice. And if you stir it a little bit, then you kind kind of even out the temperature in the fluid
Cool.
so that it cools down faster.
Okay, keep stirring. Doing a really great job.
I'm a good stirrer.
Go! Yeah, that's going. What are you doing? Where are you taking it? Where are you taking my beer?
I've got the cooled down wort.
Oh, it's not beer yet, dang
It's
it.
not beer yet. It's wort still. It's cooled down to about 65 degrees now. We're in good shape. So we're going to transfer it from the kettle into the fermenter, the carboy. So we're going to transfer that over. It's called racking it, and we're going to use an auto siphon for that. And we're going to rack it over. Then we're going to get it ready. We're going to aerate it and pitch our yeast. Oh, but first, we are also going to check our original gravity. So we've got our auto siphon. What we're going to do is we're going to siphon off a little bit of wort into this vial, and we're going to use a hydrometer to measure what's called the original gravity, which is basically how much sugar is in your liquid, and that's going to be our starting point. And then as the wort ferments and turns into beer, you're going to measure later for when it's done, you're going to measure the final gravity. And the difference between the original gravity and how many sugars are left at the final gravity is going to tell you how much of that sugar was converted into alcohol and give you your ABV. So we're hoping it's like 15, 20, 25% ABV, but it's probably not going to be
No, we're not.
like 5 or 6. But anyway. So that's what we're doing. We're actually just going to measure our original gravity, see how much sugar's in our solution.
Okay.
We are transferring the wort from the kettle into the carboy or the fermenter. And so we've got an auto siphon that is transferring it over. And while we're doing that, I am going to measure the original gravity of this beautiful liquid. Drop her in there like a dreidel, and then you spin it. We are at about 1050, I think.
1050.
1050 is a great number. 1050. 1050. Shaking it up. We're going a little more. Woo. It's the Cars, not Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is for you newbie freaks. This is old
Taylor
school.
Swift is
We're
old
going
school
the
too now.
Cars. Shake it up. And we're just aerating this. This is the only time you're going to shake your beer. Or the only time you should, because it's not beer yet. You're just aerating it before you pitch the yeast.
Is it still called wort?
It's still worked, and we're going to shake it up, aerate it pretty good, get it good and crazy. And now we're going to pitch some yeast. Alright, we're ready to pitch our yeast. We're doing the Safale SO4, which is their English ale, to give it a little bit of a fruity ester to it. And we're just going to drop that in there, pour it very carefully, try to get it all into the liquid and not on the side. No, we're not making a starter or anything, we're just pitching straight into the wort.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is some people make starter yeasts and stuff to get it activated quicker. It's like already going and churning around and going crazy, but you know, this is obviously we're not going too crazy with this. So. Got our little bubble machine.
And ideally you want to brew outside when it's warm.
Yeah, you want to brew when it's warm, but now that's
No,
on
not
there.
hot. Wait, don't listen to me. I'm just complaining because it's cold.
And now hopefully in a couple hours or a few hours, hopefully this thing will start bubbling up and making some beer.
Okay, where should you store this? Can I just leave it in the sun?
I would not leave it in the sun because what we want to do, we started at 65 degrees here. The fermentation is going to heat that up by a few degrees, 2 or 3 degrees probably. So we're trying to keep it in this like 68 to 70 degree range for this yeast. And so you want to keep it, ideally you'd like to keep it somewhere darkish, and like if you have a closet, or we're going to put this in our...
How about a big closet?
We have a big closet. We're going to put this in our tub in our RV, and we're going to probably drape some towels around it and stuff to try and keep it at a specific temperature. And we should be able, that should be cool enough at the weather the way it is right now. We should be able to keep it in that temperature range pretty easy.
So, happy feasting, yeast.
If not, if we need to cool it off, we'll use some wet towels. We'll get those wet with cold water and wrap it around the outside to bring the temperature back down a little bit, because that'll like pull the heat away from it. Or if it gets a little bit too cold, which it might right now, surprisingly in Alabama, you'd think we're down by the coast, it should be hot, but it's not, it's cold. So we might have to turn on the heater in there. We have a little space heater, so we'll just be real careful and watch the temperature and see where we go. We have our yeast pitched into our fermenter, our carboy right here. This is our carboy, this glass container, and it's also the fermenting vessel, the fermenter. And we are just gonna set it in here in our RV. Yeah, we're not driving anywhere, so it'll be just fine.
Okay. All right. How long does this sit for?
This beer should take about a week to ferment, give or take a couple of days. Most of the fermentation will happen in the first like 3 to 4 days probably, and then it'll just slowly finish off there. But you can see down here, this fermenter is really nice, and this is just a sticker that's on the side, but it's a sticker that's also a thermometer. So it reads the temperature of the wort in there, and right now it's a little on the cool side, but this thing isn't like super accurate, so I think we're in pretty good shape though. We hit 64 degrees. That's pretty good, and once this thing starts actually actively fermenting, it's going to go up pretty quick to a few more degrees, so it should be just perfect.
Lovely.